Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Absolute Resonance Part 13 based on novel. So let's start. Sun Creek Villa, Discussion Hall. When the trio arrived, they noticed that there were no empty seats. This was because the entire senior management of the Sun Creek Villa had arrived. Right in front of them was Zhuang Yi with a beaming smile on his face. Sitting right by his side was a dour-faced old man. Upon seeing that old man, Xia Wei and Yang Lingqing both let out soft cries of surprise before explaining the situation to the slightly confused Li Luo. That old man is known as Ping. He is an elder of the Sun Creek Villa's headquarters. His influence in the organization is huge, and he belongs to the founding generation of the Sun Creek Villa. He has been around since it was first established by the House Lords. However, this old man is known to be extremely pedantic and strict, a bag of smelly and stubborn bones. He usually resides in the Xia city headquarters. Now that he has suddenly arrived without giving us any notice, I can only imagine that things have gotten pretty bad. After the explanation, everyone in the discussion hall stood up and greeted Li Luo respectfully. Even Elder Ping from the Sun Creek Villa's headquarters stood up and respectfully uttered, "We greet the young lord." Elder Zheng is too courteous. Li Luo flashed him a smile as the trio got to their seats. "May I kindly know when Elder Zheng arrived in the city of Southwind?" Yang Lingqing suddenly asked. Elder Ping expressionlessly replied, "The Qianshu province's Sun Creek Villa has been performing poorly this year. Headquarters has thus sent me here to take a look. At the same time, they've dispatched me to settle the issue regarding the presidency of this branch." At the same time, he glared strictly at Yang Lingqing. "Vice President Yang, I've already seen the reports. The first-grade refining workshop under you has performed abysmally. As a result, the reputation of the Sun Creek Villa in the Qianshu province has been tarnished. What do you have to say about this?" Yang Lingqing coldly replied, "If you want to know why, you can ask Vice President Zhuang. I'm sure he can provide a more accurate answer." Zhuang Yi immediately retorted, "Vice President Yang is simply incapable. Don't push the blame onto others. If it was not for you secretly blocking the supply of materials to my first-grade workshop, to a point where I was unable to operate on certain days, would I have had such a terrible result?" Yang Lingqing snorted. Zhuang Yi immediately protested, "House Loulan's situation in the Qianshu province is simply not great. Some of the materials come from the three families as well, and they have always sought to suppress us. What lands in my hands is naturally not much. Furthermore, the third-grade refining workshop in my management is the best-performing workshop in the Sun Creek Villa. Should I simply give it to you too? To let you reap the benefits of my efforts? You?" Yang Lingqing was so incensed she slammed the table beside her. "Silence!" Elder Ping bellowed. He severely glared at both Zhuang Yi and Yang Lingqing. "All of you have your reasons, but this old man does not care. I'm only concerned about the Sun Creek Villa's results. Whoever causes the Sun Creek Villa to decline or tarnishes its reputation will not be forgiven. The Qianshu province's performance has been getting worse, and the key reason is that there is no president. Thus, headquarters has discussed the issue and given the order. The branch in the Qianshu province will immediately elect a new president." His proclamation immediately silenced the entire discussion hall. The members of senior management did not make so much as a squeak, as they understood that this would be a battle between Yang Lingqing and Zhuang Yi. The worst part was that they were just the vanguards. There was an entire larger battle raging around their skirmish, thus they would only quietly watch from the sidelines. A glimmer flickered through Li Luo's pupils. What Ping had said was not wrong. The Sun Creek Villa in the Qianshu province had too much internal conflict, and if stability was wanted, a new president would be necessary. Most importantly, just who would the elder choose? As he pondered over the circumstances, Li Luo smiled and asked directly, "Elder Ping, who do you feel is most suitable to be president?" Ping may have treated Yang Lingqing rudely, but when facing Li Luo, he maintained a sense of decorum. After deep thought, he announced, "If we follow the Sun Creek Villa's eternal rule, it should be the one who is best at managing the refining workshops. Zhuang Yi, who was at the side, let out a sneaky smile. He personally managed the third-grade workshop, which also surpassed the other two in absolute sales. Hence, this rule was most beneficial to him. At this point, Elder Zhengping continued, "This is, of course, according to the rules. If the young lord has any suggestions, please let them be known. This old man can relay your suggestion to headquarters as well. However, we will still have to decide who will be the president now, otherwise, this old man will be stuck here until that has been done. I hope the young lord will not fault me for this, as I only have the Sun Creek Villas and House Loulan's interests at heart." Although Zhuang Yi's expression remained unchanged, his heart was in turmoil. Why did that damn old man have to speak so much? Li Luo gave the elder an eye and had an idea. It seemed as though Elder Zhengping's appearance was not as Yang Lingqing had suspected, that someone else had dispatched him to cause trouble for their faction. At the very least, he was not on Pei Hao's side. The biggest fear for them was if the individual suddenly appointed by headquarters to visit the Jiangsu province was involved in the proxy war between Jiang Qing'e and Pei Hao. Luckily, Elder Zhengping was a neutral party and was known to be a stickler for rules. It seemed as though this was the result of the battle fought in the shadows. From a certain point of view, this was not bad news. The only issue was that if traditional rules were utilized to judge the most suitable candidate for president, then Yang Lingqing would be at too much of a disadvantage. Furthermore, the third-grade refining workshop that Zhuang Yi controlled was the Sun Creek Villa's most profitable one as well. What it raked in was significantly greater than both the first and second-grade refining workshops combined. Yang Lingqing also understood this point, and her pretty face turned frigid. Her pretty eyes were also laced with fury, almost as if she was about to erupt. Li Luo, sensing the anger, immediately grabbed the back of her hand before looking at Elder Zhengping with conviction. So whoever's refining workshop does the best will then become the president? Yes. Elder Zhengping nodded. Li Luo sighed deeply before continuing, "This idea isn't bad. Let's go ahead with this." His words were immediately met with hushed discussion. Cai Wei and Yang Lingqing were astonished by this. They were unable to understand his intentions. This seemed to mean that he was giving up the fight for president. Zhuang Yi was also shocked at this development for a moment before quickly recovering. The young lord truly is broad-minded. Isn't it right that we just want the Sun Creek Villa to be the best that it can be? Ultimately, doesn't the Sun Creek Villa exist to enrich the young lord? He said with a huge smile. Elder Zhengping was a little surprised as well. "Young lord, do you truly wish to do this?" Li Luo nodded and did not say anything else. He immediately got Cai Wei and Yang Lingqing to follow him out of the discussion hall. Once out, Li Luo separated himself from the two. At this point, Yang Lingqing immediately berated him. "Li Luo, just what are you trying to do? This rule does not favor me, so why did you agree? If you don't want me to be here, just say the word. I will immediately head back to Xia City." Cai Wei was also staring at Li Luo intensely. From what she knew of him, he was not an impulsive individual, but his actions today seemed to show otherwise. Yang Lingqing had come to the Jiangsu province's Sun Creek Villa to provide help and reinforcements. Only with her here were they able to prevent their current state of affairs from getting worse. However, everything seemed to have been thrown into disarray with that one line. Li Luo smiled in response. "My two dear elder sisters, I am definitely not a fool. Can't you see that I am worthy of your trust?" Cai Wei shot him an unconvinced look before the two of them turned around and left in a huff, not interested in entertaining him any longer. Although the rules don't benefit elder sister Lingqing, don't you think that this is the best sort of situation, one where she can legitimately compete for the role of president? At the same time, we have an opportunity to get rid of this cancer known as Zhuang Yi. Li Luo smiled. The two paused in their tracks and turned back to look at Li Luo. This was a good opportunity. However, Zhuang Yi clearly was in a position of strength. If they were to play with fire, they might very well get burnt. At this point, a glint flickered through Cai Wei's eyes as she stared at Li Luo in shock. Could it be that you have a way to turn the tables? The moment Cai Wei blurted out those words, Yang Lingqing couldn't help but to turn and glare at her. What sort of solution can this buffoon have? He's barely spent any time on resonance artificering, she spat out furiously. She did not continue her tirade because Li Luo had not even spent a month on this. It would be a fantastical story if he was able to reverse the dreadful situation they were in. Li Luo smiled and did not speak. Instead, he beckoned for the two of them to enter Yang Lingqing's refining workshop, closing the door after them. Only then did he continue speaking. I understand that the Sun Creek Villa is responsible for half of House Loulan's Jianshu province profits, roughly 150,000 pieces of sky gold. Within the Sun Creek Villa, the first-grade refining workshop contributes 30,000 pieces of sky gold, the second-grade workshop 40,000 pieces, and the third-grade 80,000 pieces. If you understood the situation, then why did you go and shoot your mouth off? There's clearly a huge gap. How can we possibly catch up? Yang Lingqing angrily thundered. As she was managing two of the refining workshops, she was extremely clear of the facts. The third-grade workshop significantly exceeded the first-grade and second-grade workshops in value and also had the best performance each year. This was like the difference between heaven and earth, something extremely hard to bridge. More importantly, the Sun Creek Villa's azure jade spirit liquid has been suppressed by the Pine Nut Villa's wondrous sunshine light. This has directly reduced our sales of spirit liquids, and in this situation, forget turning things around, our performance will only get worse. Li Luo smiled again. And so this is our top priority to fix. We need to first stabilize the Sun Creek Villa's first-grade sales and improve its reputation in the market. Yang Lingqing snorted. As I previously explained, there are three aspects that affect the spirit liquids and purifying light's tempering strength. Materials, the resonance artificer, and the water source or light source. The azure jade spirit liquid has a perfected recipe, and with our current abilities, we cannot make further inroads in terms of improving it unless we can hire an expert resonance artificer. However, this requires a lot of time and capital, neither of which we have. A slow remedy cannot address our current situation. I'm sure the Song family has prepared for quite a while for this, waiting for the perfect time to strike. As House Loulan is now struggling internally, they took advantage of the opportunity to deal this vicious blow. Cai Wei mused. Our only response is to improve our resonance artificer skills and experience. However, with such a small period of time, it's impossible to suddenly expect everyone to explode in potential and for the standard to rise just like that. This isn't a fantasy story. It's unrealistic. Yang Lingqing quipped. Cai Wei continued to stare intensely at Li Luo, smiling. Didn't the young lord produce an azure jade spirit liquid with 60% tempering strength? Yang Lingqing rolled her eyes at Cai Wei. How many spirit liquids do you think a single person can produce? Even if we turn him into a cash cow, he can barely squeeze out any milk. Li Luo's handsome face turned a shade of black. Although he didn't mind refining first-grade spirit liquids and purifying lights, he was still a respectable individual. Why did they have to demean him like that? And a cow of all things. Well then, the only solution is to improve the water source or light source, Li Luo continued, not willing to bicker with the two. Yang Lingqing unhappily replied, this is dependent on the resonance artificer's resonance grades and affinities. Could it be that you're willing to improve the resonances of all the resonance artificers in the Sun Creek Villa? If we had a secret art water source or light source, it could allow us to improve the tempering strength of our spirit liquids and purifying lights. However, this is a closely guarded secret for even major powers. Our Sun Creek Villa simply does not possess this. Li Luo lightly chuckled upon hearing this. That might not be the case. The duo stared at him with a trace of bewilderment. Under their careful scrutiny, Li Luo removed a crystal bottle from his robe. The bottle was half filled with a deep blue liquid. Do you want to give this a try? He asked. Yang Lingqing's eyebrows rose in suspicion. As I told you before, you simply can't just use someone else's water source. Only a secret art water source. Before she could finish her sentence, Li Luo uncorked the bottle and a steady stream of pure energy wafted outwards. This was what caused Yang Lingqing to pause in her tracks, staring in astonishment at the crystal bottle. As though possessed, she immediately snatched the crystal bottle out of Li Luo's hand and gently poured a droplet onto her finger. Carefully inspecting it, the shock on her face only grew more intense. There is no attribute or characteristic mixed into this. Could this be a secret art water source? This sort of purity is even higher than what someone with a 7th grade water resonance can produce. How could you have obtained such a high-grade secret art water source? Yang Lingqing asked as she grasped Li Luo's hand crazily. It seemed as though she had lost all sense of rationality at this sight. Secret art water sources were differentiated by grade. The one Li Luo had taken out had already reached the purity of a 7th grade one. Such a pure water source could definitely increase the success rate and tempering strength of spirit liquids when utilized, something truly rare. Li Luo could feel a piercing pain due to how tightly Yang Lingqing was squeezing his hand. Seeing how agitated she was, he slowed down his words in an attempt to calm her down. Elder sister Lingqing, don't be too flustered. Can we use this water source for refining spirit liquids and purifying lights? Of course we can. A secret art water source of this purity would definitely allow the azure jade spirit liquid to reach 60% tempering strength, at the least when used in the refinement process. This would be more than enough to beat the wondrous sunshine light at its own game. The only problem is that the amount is too little. If we were to use it for refinement, it would only be enough for around 30 spirit liquids. Her beautiful pupils were firmly affixed on Li Luo, completely different from her usual, indifferent, and icy gaze. It seemed almost incompatible with the personality Li Luo knew her for. What if we were to use it on 2nd grade spirit liquids and purifying lights? Li Luo asked after a moment of thought. It might be true that using such a treasure on 1st grade spirit liquids would be almost wasteful. However, it's as I said, the amount of water source is simply too little. If we were to use it on 2nd grade spirit liquids and purifying lights, I'm afraid we would only be able to refine a few of them. It might be more efficient to use it to refine 1st grade spirit liquids, Yang Lingqing replied. Li Luo felt a little awkward deep down. This secret art water source was the water source condensed by his water-light resonance. Due to his blank palace, even the water source he condensed possessed a trace of its void affinity. In essence, it was just like a secret art water source, able to be used by anyone for resonance artificering. However, this half a bottle was something he had managed to produce only after 3 days. He was currently only at the 6th seal stage, so his resonant power was not extremely dense nor plentiful. Thus, the amount of secret art water source he could produce was also limited. I guess we can first use it on the 1st grade azure jade spirit liquid for now then. If I'm able to pass a bottle like this to you every 3 days, would it allow the 1st grade refining workshop to become the best performing workshop within the Sun Creek Villa? Li Luo asked. Cai Wei paused to consider. The 1st grade refining workshop sells about 150 bottles of azure jade spirit liquid a month. This roughly adds up to about 90,000 pieces of sky gold a year. The 3rd grade refining workshop brings in 210,000 pieces of sky gold. For the 1st grade refining workshop to surpass the 3rd grade, we would need the sales to increase manifold. There will be some significant difficulty involved if we wish to purely rely on the 1st grade refining workshop. Well, if we have sufficient amounts of this secret art water source, it would not be difficult to increase our sales by that much. With how pure this secret art water source is, utilizing it on 1st grade spirit liquids for refinement is akin to using a sledgehammer to crack a nut. Thus, the tempering strength would definitely increase significantly. Yang Lingqing said confidently. Clapping his hands, Li Luo laughed. Then it looks like our problem has been solved. Yang Lingqing was a little dazed at his response, spacing out for a moment. Had this arduous problem been resolved in such a simple manner? How could it be so simple? Yang Lingqing exhaled deeply. It truly wasn't as easy as Li Luo had mentioned. It was only because Li Luo had managed to produce an item that surpassed everyone's expectations. If anyone else knew that he was utilizing such a treasure to create first-grade spirit liquids, they would inevitably curse him angrily for being the fool and wastrel that he was. The two ladies glanced at each other, tacitly agreeing to not ask Li Luo how this secret art water source had come about. The way they saw it, it likely had to do with a secret passed down by the two house lords. It looks like the young lord might be House Loulan's harbinger of wealth. Xia Wei laughed whilst coyly covering her mouth. Her beautiful face was absolutely bursting with joy. Although the secret art water source might be a little small in amount, it will definitely be more than sufficient to meet the Sun Creek Villa's needs in the interim. Yang Lingqing's small and square head lightly nodded. The Sun Creek Villa currently only sold 150 bottles a month, and at the rate which Li Luo would provide it, this would definitely meet all their existing needs. All right, I won't speak of this anymore. I have to go and make use of the time we have to produce the first batch of enhanced azure jade spirit liquids. We first need to build a reputation for our new product and improve public opinion. Yang Lingqing tightly grasped the bottle of deep blue liquid as though it was her baby and immediately rushed off. Li Luo and Xia Wei could only helplessly look on before they left the refining workshop together. Yet before Li Luo could say anything, Xia Wei immediately started to stride away quickly, and he had to quickly reach out and stop her. Elder sister Xia Wei, are you trying to get rid of me? Li Luo asked angrily. Xia Wei innocently looked at him. Young lord, what are you trying to say? I have many tasks to settle. Elder sister Xia Wei. I've just resolved the Sun Creek Villa's predicament. You can't just ignore my outstanding service and contributions, following which, Li Luo furtively glanced around in every direction before lowering his voice. I still need a batch of 5th-grade spirit liquids and purifying lights. A trace of bitterness could be seen in Xia Wei's eyes as she looked at Li Luo. Young lord, it has barely been a month, yet you've gobbled up almost 800,000 pieces of sky gold. This is 2 years of the Tianshu province's profits. At the rate you're going, we just can't afford to feed you any longer. Li Luo seemed a little ashamed at this point. The speed at which he burned through sky gold was indeed a little excessive. However, he had no choice. This acquired resonance was a sky gold devouring beast. He could only praise his parents for leaving behind an entire house as the foundation for him. Otherwise, reaching the Duke stage within 5 years would be an impossible dream. This will be the last batch of 5th-grade spirit liquids and purifying lights. I promise, Li Luo swore. Upon hearing those words, Xia Wei paused for a moment before lightly gritting her teeth. Fine, then I will have to sell 2 more businesses. Simply saying that caused Xia Wei to feel a little bit of sadness in her heart. With her abilities in management, she had never thought that she would have to sell the businesses under her to maintain the state of affairs. She had no choice in this matter. Li Luo was, after all, a bottomless pit. Still she was extremely dissatisfied. Li Luo gave a dry cough and smiled as he nodded. He truly wasn't lying. His water-light resonance was about to reach the 6th grade, so 5th-grade spirit liquids and purifying lights would no longer be required. At that point, he would only require 6th-grade ones. Of course, this was something he hid in his heart and refused to speak of. At least for now. Otherwise, Xia Wei might simply just quit in frustration on the spot. For the next few days, Li Luo spent half of his time cultivating the old manor and the other half at the Sun Creek Villa, practicing his resonance artificering arts. He was already able to produce a single first-grade azure jade spirit liquid reliably each day. He could be considered a full-fledged resonance artificer now. Additionally, the azure jade spirit liquid he refined had tempering strength that was constantly increasing as he gained more experience. However, he was not satisfied with just this. Thus, he started to experiment with 2nd-grade spirit liquids and purifying lights. These were several times more complex to refine than 1st-grade spirit liquids and purifying lights, with more complicated materials and processes. As a result, he was faced with innumerable failures. Li Luo was not disheartened or anxious despite this. Failure was the mother of success and also an invaluable experience. So long as he continued to accumulate experience, it was just a matter of before he would succeed in becoming a second-grade resonance artificer. Luckily, the last batch of 5th-grade spirit liquids and purifying lights were finally sent over by Cai Wei. As he continued to guzzle these tempering treasures down, he could faintly feel that his water-light resonance was gradually approaching the 6th grade. In the interim, he had also managed to raise his resonant power to the 7th seal and was jubilant. He was not surprised by this, as he had spent painstaking effort cultivating in the cultivation room of the old manor. Coupled with the purity of the resonant power produced by his water-light resonance, his cultivation was simpler and quicker. Thus, he was effectively no weaker than an individual with a 7th-grade resonance. At the same time, he had also received good news from Yang Lingqing. The first batch of enhanced azure jade spirit liquid had been refined. The Sun Creek Villa. An intricately carved box was placed atop the table. Inside it were 40 crystal bottles, filled to the brim with azure green liquid. This was the enhanced azure jade spirit liquid. Yang Lingqing's face was full of undisguised excitement. She said to Li Luo and Cai Wei, "The secret art water source provided by Li Luo is unfathomably pure." As a result, the first-grade refining workshop's success rate has increased significantly. Originally, we could only produce 5 spirit liquids a day, but now we can produce 10. Furthermore, the tempering strength of these spirit liquids is around 60%. These are definitely considered high-quality first-grade spirit liquids. As Li Luo listened, he frowned. Based on his quick math, if they produced 10 bottles a day, a year's income would only be around 180,000 pieces of sky gold. There was still a gap between that and the 3rd-grade refining workshop. He immediately voiced his concerns as a result. "That's something I can solve. Leave it to me." Cai Wei flashed an enchanting smile at the group. "How does elder sister Cai Wei plan to do this?" Li Luo asked with a little bit of surprise. Cai Wei continued to smirk. "The Golden Dragon Bank has been stocking up on first-grade spirit liquids and purifying lights. They are also paying higher than market price, at almost 60 pieces of sky gold a bottle. If they choose to purchase the Sun Creek Villa's azure jade spirit liquid, we can set up an agreement that will definitely allow us to exceed the profits of the 3rd-grade refining workshop. Additionally, and more importantly, the Golden Dragon Bank possesses a stellar reputation, and their choice will definitely demonstrate just who produces the highest quality first-grade spirit liquids and purifying lights in the Qianshu province. Their endorsement is actually the most valuable thing here." Li Luo took all of it in and understood the situation. The Golden Dragon Bank had always been a purveyor of fine goods and would normally never even deign to look at low-grade treasures. If they had a need for them, they would naturally gravitate towards the very best. If one were chosen by them, they could even work out an agreement for future business whilst improving the reputation of the maker's products. This would be excellent publicity in and of itself. "I will drop by the Golden Dragon Bank later. I hope the young lord will also accompany me. I want to take advantage of your looks and reputation," Cai Wei stated with a grin. The Golden Dragon Bank had always remained neutral. However, it also possessed titanic strength, and in the Xia Kingdom, no one would wantonly provoke them. On the other hand, they also prized harmony and wealth creation, thus they never sought to create enemies either. Li Luo was House Loulan's young lord. Even though his influence in the family had wavered, his title was still his own, deserving of respect. He had no objections, and frankly, he only wanted to ensure that the Sun Creek Villa was under his tight control. That way, it could continue to churn out sky gold for him. He definitely wouldn't mind being brought along as a mascot. "Let's go." He picked up the box and left with a smiling Cai Wei. The dazzling and luxurious-looking Golden Dragon Bank was constantly bustling with people as one of the most popular areas in the city of Southwind. When Li Luo and Cai Wei entered the bank, a female attendant immediately rushed out to attend to them. After finding out that they were looking for President Lu, she explained that he was currently welcoming another group of guests and that they would have to wait for a while. Without anything else to do, the two found a place to sit and awaited President Lu. Yet just as Li Luo sat down and started staring at the fascinating tiles on the ground, he noticed a slender leg appear in his sights. Glancing upwards, he realized that Lu Qing'e's pretty face was directly in front of him. She was wearing a black, short skirt, contrasting against her white thighs, creating an enthralling sight. Combined with her fine, black hair draped behind her, she was like a fairy in the flesh. "What is the young lord doing here?" she asked curiously. "I'm looking to discuss business with President Lu." Li Luo smiled. Lu Qing'e stared at the box beside him, directly getting to the meat of the question. "Is it first-grade spirit liquids?" She was naturally well-versed with all the issues regarding the Golden Dragon Bank, especially their recent demand for first-grade spirit liquids. Li Luo nodded. "Does such a simple matter require the involvement of the young lord?" Lu Qing'e continued to question. Ultimately, high-quality first-grade spirit liquids and purifying lights were still just that. First-grade treasures. Whether it was House Loulan or the Golden Dragon Bank, the cost to purchase them would merely be a drop in the ocean. Li Luo sighed and said in a low voice, "You will never understand the struggles that a young lord in dire straits faces." Lu Qing'e couldn't help but laugh, then her gaze shifted to the mature and charming beauty beside him. "This elder sister is extremely gorgeous. Does the role of a general manager in House Loulan have such strict requirements too?" Cai Wei lightly laughed. "Younger sister, you are also very beautiful. I'm sure your suitors in South Wind Academy are as plentiful as the clouds. I wonder if the young lord is also one of them." "Don't drag me into this pointless thing," Li Luo dryly coughed. "Let me bring you to find second uncle. He's currently dealing with the people from the Song family. They've taken the initiative to approach us, directly hawking their wondrous sunshine light after they found out that our Golden Dragon Bank was searching for first-grade spirit liquids and purifying lights." Li Luo and Cai Wei glanced at each other. It had slipped their minds that the Song family would have similar thoughts. They weren't idiots after all, and they wanted to borrow this opportunity to rise above their stature and improve the reputation of the products they refined. "Won't we be interrupting their discussion?" Li Luo may have sounded a little embarrassed, but he had already stood up, ready to go. "Well, there's no decision being made," Lu Qing'e commented indifferently before turning around to lead the way. "Though you should already be aware of the quality of the Pine Nut Villa's wondrous sunshine light. I might be able to lead the way, but if you want second uncle to change his mind, you need to prove your ability with the quality of your goods. I, Li Luo, have always been an outstanding and upright individual. I would never rely on my connections," Li Luo declared heroically. Lu Qing'e sighed lightly and did not want to bicker any further. She directly led the two through the corridor. They eventually reached a VIP room, and someone familiar was seen walking out of it. "Song Yunfeng?" Li Luo exclaimed in surprise. Song Yunfeng also saw Li Luo and was slightly astonished. At the same time, he frowned and addressed Lu Qing'e directly. "Qing'e, why did you bring him here?" "Li Luo and my second uncle have a meeting, and so I decided to lead them here," Lu Qing'e said with an unchanging expression. Li Luo looked at her radiant and beautiful face. A beauty was truly able to lie without batting an eyelid. Her performance was absolutely perfect. Song Yunfeng's expression turned dark as he couldn't tell if she was lying. However, he had no choice. This was the Golden Dragon Bank and not his Song family stomping grounds. In the end, he could only stare wistfully at Lu Qing'e walking in. Glancing at the box in Li Luo's hands, he indifferently commented, "Li Luo, there's no need to waste your time. Your Sun Creek Villa cannot compete with my clearly superior Pine Nut Villa." Li Luo chuckled. "You might be surprised. Did you ever consider the idea that we would end up in a draw if we fought?" Song Yunfeng's composed demeanor was instantly shattered, his face a steel green as he furiously glared at Li Luo. If looks could kill, Li Luo would have been shredded into 1,000 pieces. Li Luo, on the other hand, ignored him, directly walking into the room with Cai Wei. This video will end here.